Shifting from saving for retirement to spending that money that you've worked so hard to save is a real difficult thing to do. For savers, spending is a real fear. If thinking about this shift, meaning spending your money in retirement, makes you feel uncomfortable or uneasy, I want to let you know that you're not alone. And today we're going to talk about 5 things that you must know about the decumulation phase, that withdrawal or spending phase, to help you retire successfully.
Welcome to the Your Life, Your Money podcast with Scott Searins, teaching you how to thrive in life, wealth, and retirement.
We're glad to have you back on Your Life, Your Money, the podcast helping you thrive in life, wealth, and retirement, alongside Scott Searins, the president and financial advisor over at Searins Financial Group. I am Ben George, and we're glad to have you on the show today. We're talking about decumulation. I know all of our life we're focused on accumulating things, right? Assets, money, whatever it is. But then there's that next stage that I think often gets overlooked for people when they're thinking about retirement, and that's, how do I spend all that money down, right? So hopefully today's show will help kind of give some guidance there.
I think so, Ben. This is a real mindset shift that people need to make. And with anything, any type of habit that we build up as human beings, it's tough to break those habits and start new ones. And it takes time, and sometimes it takes repetition, it takes a plan. And I really look forward to today's episode, because been having a lot of conversations about this lately with a lot of savers, and we'll talk about that. Savers have a tough time becoming spenders. So really looking forward to talking about decumulation.
Yeah, it should be a good show today. And I want to get a quick start off and give a quick shout out to a review we got recently on the podcast, Scott. And we appreciate all the feedback we get. And I always want to encourage anyone that has thoughts, if you listen to the show at all, you've liked what you've heard, if you got any benefit from it at all, or you've shared it with a friend, leave us a review. Let us know what you think. We love hearing from you. We get questions a lot from the podcast, but if you've had a positive experience and learned something along the way, we'd love it if you left us a review on Apple, Google, Spotify, wherever you listen. Just drop a review there. It could be short, to the point, but we'd appreciate the feedback there. And then while you're there, also subscribe to the show. We've had a lot of new subscribers come on, and we've experienced a little bit of growth over this past year, which we do appreciate. We wanted to keep pushing forward as well and help as many people as we can along the way with this financial education. So, yeah, I want to kind of start off there, Scott, by thanking the review we got.
Yeah, hey, thanks for the great review. We appreciate that. And, I realize sometimes we all have different ways of sharing things, right, Ben? And so sometimes people share things via what they, just talking to other people. Sometimes it's, forwarding an email or sending them a text. And for other people there, they might not, feel comfortable doing that, but just leaving us a review helps all of the Google, Spotify, Apple podcast algorithms, and says, hey, if you're thinking, that this is a helpful podcast, and I hope that you find it of value and benefit. And if so, leaving us a review will help others find it as well. And so we really appreciate just providing us some honest feedback. We really appreciate that, and helping others find the podcast.
Yeah, absolutely. So once again, if you have a chance, just drop a quick review for us, and we would appreciate that. All right, you can find us online also at lifemoneyshow.com, so make sure you visit there. All of our podcasts are up. If you want to go back and listen to past shows, you'll find them there, plus all the video content that Scott does as well. Some really good information there. So if you at the desktop as well, just wanting to throw up something in the background to listen to and watch while you work, it's a good place to start, lifemoneyshow.com. All right, today, 5 things you must know about decumulation to retire successfully. And as we mentioned, everything we do early in our career is all about accumulating money, right? There's plenty of advice. You can look anywhere and find information on saving and investing. But if you look around and try to find resources on navigating that period of time in retirement where you have to actually spend down this and manage this money, which is known as decumulation, you're not going to find as many resources there. So hopefully these 5 things will help you have a better understanding of decumulation, how to approach it, and what you need to do to retire successfully. So number one thing here, Scott, you need to know is, as we kind of touched on already, is there is often a lack of support. Even I think for people that have financial advisors, right? There's some people that just focus on that lead into retirement that don't put as much time into after you're retired, but it's important to realize there's not a lot of support out there for you.
That's a great point, and I guess we could almost break it down into, yes, there are advisors. Thanks for bringing that up, Ben. There are advisors that are, I'll call it accumulation advisors, right? Just helping you and your money grow. And they're just solely focused on investments and managing your investments. So they're just helping you only in that growth state of your life. And it might, just be that's how their firm is set up. That might just be how they prefer to work on things. But think about that day that last company paycheck will come in. And for some people, that creates some fear. For some, that might create some anxiety. And one of the things is that you want to make sure that you're getting the proper support as that day comes near. Here's a good analogy. It's kind of like driving without a map, without a destination. So that if somebody's just managing investments for you, you're kind of taken off, but you're not really sure where you're going or what your destination is. Are you going to make it there? How many times do you need to fill up with gas? You're driving without that map, without that GPS. And that's why, this decumulation phase. So, a lot of times if you're within 10 years of retirement, and there's a good reason for that 10 years, I call it the hazard zone. We've talked about it in previous podcasts before. So I'd recommend going to, lifemoneyshow.com, looking for some previous podcasts, and you'll see it there. But that's when you really want to have somebody that can support you through the decumulation phase, meaning that phase where you're going to have to take withdrawals from your retirement savings, from everything that you've saved up. And having somebody that's not only going to get you to retirement, but also help get you through retirement. And I'll just kind of walk you through. If you're working with an accumulation specialist as you near retirement, here's some of the questions that would probably go through your mind. How much can I spend? Am I keeping up with inflation? Am I going to run out of money or not? How much more can I spend to actually enjoy, what I can while I can? And if those types of questions are going through your mind, you might just be working with somebody who's only focused on investments versus being with somebody like myself who's specialized in getting you to, but also through retirement, who's helping you put together an income plan that's going to take into account your Social Security. It's going to take into account taxes, inflation, Medicare, your lifestyle needs, how much money you need to withdraw to retire. It's also going to take into account any other goals that you might have, like traveling, moving to another state, buying another home and renovating it, putting in a pool. Whatever those goals are, it's all taken into account in that plan, so that way you know how much that you can successfully, how much you can withdraw from your accounts and also make that money last. And so that's kind of the difference, right? Again, you really hit it on the head there, Ben. There's some folks that are just focused on helping people just grow their money. But what I've found is that then once people come in, they sit down and they it's kind of like the lights go off in their eyes and they see it because they see that they have all of these questions on their minds that they're not really getting help in. And that means that they actually need more support, or that next step of support, which is how do we take what we've saved up and how do we use it to live our lifestyle, but also make sure it lasts. And that's working with a whole different support system, somebody that does retirement planning as well as investment management.
All right, so that's the first thing. There's often a lack of support in the accumulation stage. All right, the fear of spending is real. That's the next thing we want you to know about. If you're scared to spend money in retirement, just know that you're not alone here, right? Because we spend so much time thinking about saving, being in this mindset, and you talk about that mindset transition. This is a really difficult one for a lot of people.
And first off, I just want to let people know that you're not alone. Work with clients that have $1 million, $2 million or more, and it doesn't matter the amount. This is a real fear that people have, is that, of taking what they've worked so hard to save and actually spending it. It's just what you said, Ben. It's building those habits of saving over time and now changing those habits to become a spender. And it's a real fear. I mean, sitting down in some recent meetings, having, prospective clients come in and sit down and tell me, I just have this fear of that day that my company paycheck no longer comes in. I have this fear. I've always been a saver. How am I going to spend it? And I've had people say this is going to, this feels really scary to do this. And it goes back to, it shows me that there's not a plan or a strategy in place. And here's one of the things that I find really helps. And I'm going to call it our income guardrail strategy is, part of what we do is we determine how much a client can withdraw from their accounts. But I feel like when people kind of shift into this retirement income phase, it feels like driving over this really, really, really narrow bridge that doesn't have any guardrails on it. So imagine taking your car and there's a bridge that's just as wide as your car. That's it, no other space. And you've got to drive across that bridge, right? Well, it's kind of going, okay, close my eyes. I hope this works out, right, Ben? Like, right. I hope I get to the other side. And what do most people do? They're going to drive a little bit and then they stop. To me, that's relating it to I've been a saver. I've tried to spend, but I just can't do it. And then they're not actually taking advantage of what they've saved up. They stop. Or the market goes down and they're looking at that like if the market goes down, that's like accidentally taking the steering wheel a little bit too far right. I'm going to fall off the edge of the bridge and I'm going to crash and burn. And instead of that, we look at income just like driving over a normal bridge with guardrails. Yes, we want to pick that position that's going to get you to the other side. But if the market goes down, if your account values go down to a certain point, we also have the guardrails. Just like you'd hit the guardrail on the bridge, you're going to hit the guardrails in our guardrail strategy and understand when you need to make a reduction. Not shut off the faucet. We don't have to turn everything down or turn everything off. It's just, hey, when do we need to just make some small adjustments, right? Because we don't have control over the markets and the economy. So when do we need to make some small adjustments? But same thing, maybe you hit the guardrail on the other side, meaning the investments in your accounts went up. Well, when can you also take that adjustment up? When can you spend more? And that I've found really helps people find comfort, find confidence in transitioning into that next step because it gives them a strategy, a mental strategy that they can kind of look at and base things on to know how much they can take out, but when they need to make adjustments. I realize it's a real fear going from a saver to from a saver to a spender. Having these strategies in place can really help make that transition. But I get it. There's still, I'll share this really quick story with you, Ben. I've got a client that, even strategies in place, they're working with it, right? They're following the strategy. And they said, well, I'm still saving part of my withdrawal. Hey, it's progress, right?
Yeah.
They're taking withdrawals. They're taking money out. They're not saving a ton from it. But it just shows that it is a real tough habit to break.
It is indeed. All right, got a few more here on our list of 5 things you need to know about decumulation. Once you get into this stage, risks become more numerous. That is what you have to be aware of. There's a few ways you can mess up during the accumulation phase of your life, but in accumulation, there's a number of things that can go wrong. And I think people don't think about that as much. They think about all the risks leading up to retirement, and they think once we're there, hey, we're in pretty good shape, but the risks never go away.
You're right. I mean, there's a few ways to mess up that accumulation or growth stage of life, meaning you didn't save enough, you were too conservative, or your portfolio wasn't diversified. But most people are hopefully, not just chasing those hot stocks and putting themselves into some diversification and at least sitting down, talking with somebody, doing some Google searches to make sure that they're growing their portfolio properly. So that is a tough stage to mess up, but I realize also it's not everybody's profession. So we help people through that accumulation stage. Again, primarily focused on those that are age 55 plus that are getting within that 10 years of retirement. But the reason why decumulation becomes more risky is because now and when we keep talking about decumulation, right, that withdrawal phase, where you're going to take money out of the accounts, is now add a different risk to the whole picture. You've got investment risk. What if investments are down, like we're seeing today, and you still need to take the withdrawals from your accounts? You've got surprise expenses. When you're working, surprise expenses don't maybe seem like such a surprise if you've got your emergency fund and you know that next week, another company paycheck is going to come in. But once you retire, you're now living off of your retirement savings and your Social Security, maybe a pension if you're lucky. So decumulation, you could have surprise expenses. There's just potential risk with Social Security or pension, meaning taking it too early, not doing planning around Social Security. What if one spouse passes away? You'll lose one of the two Social Securities. What if from pension standpoint, depending on how you set the pension up, if one spouse passes away, you could lose all of that pension. You could lose a portion of that pension. The other thing is inflation risk. A lot of pensions are a flat amount, meaning they're not growing each and every year. And so you have to look at inflation risk, not only with pensions, but just with what you'll need to withdraw from your account. So are your investments keeping up with that? And just, as I mentioned before, what if one spouse passes, if you're a married couple, what if one spouse passes away? Have you thought about the risk to your overall income and how much you need to withdraw from your accounts if that happens? So just to kind of use a few summaries from our first 2 points, this is where that income plan comes in. See, if we think about this in advance, we can plan for it. We can make sure it's prepared for. This is where those guardrails come in, understanding how much you can withdraw, and if the account value goes down, understanding when you need to make adjustments, not only adjustments down, but adjustments up. So there are a lot more risk in the decumulation phase, and it's really important that you've got a plan put together around those risks, taking into account those risks.
All right, let's talk taxes for a moment. We always want to pay attention to our taxes and our tax planning to make sure you're not paying more than your fair share. But during decumulation, people often see their assets shift around. They take withdrawals. They're changing contribution amounts. They got life changes they're experiencing as well, plus plenty of other factors. So bottom line here in decumulation is focusing on these tax consequences has never been more important.
Really important. I love talking taxes because I realize that taxes will have a huge impact on all of our futures. Either we have a plan, we have a tax plan in place, or the IRS has a plan in place for us. And I'd rather put my plan in place and, trying to reduce my overall tax burden than, paying the maximum amount to the IRS. So having a tax plan in place can be very helpful to potentially reduce your long-term taxes. In that decumulation or withdrawal phase, depending on where people saved, Ben, there could be multiple accounts to take money from. And I find that this is where things can get really confusing for people because they're going, which account do I take money from first? Because some accounts you can take money out, you might not pay taxes. Some accounts you take money out, you might just be looking at capital gains. Other accounts that you take money out, you could be looking at normal income tax on those dollars. And depending on the way that you take this money out can impact how much of that money you actually keep versus giving it to the IRS in taxes. It could impact your taxes on Social Security. It can have a lot of impacts on your overall picture. You might be taking money from the wrong account, letting other money build up, but that's actually going to cost you more in taxes in the future. Quick story on this and just why it's so important to plan. I have a client who is pretty sure that they may purchase a house in the upcoming year or 2 years based on the value of the purchase and the money that they need for the down payment. We're actually putting a tax strategy in place in regards to that, meaning we're looking at, even though they might not do it for a year from now or a couple years from now, we're already thinking about that because we might withdraw some of that money this year and then some of that money next year. Here's the reason why. If they wait and just take all of that money out in the same year, it could bump them up 1 or 2 tax brackets. But if we do it in a phased approach, now we might be able to keep them in the same tax bracket, helping to reduce the overall taxes that they pay to the IRS. So tax planning's one of my favorite subjects. I think this is a real area where people can keep a lot more of their hard-earned retirement savings with them versus giving it to the IRS. But it takes just that. It takes planning and a thought process.
All right, last one here, number 5 on our list for decumulation. You know you're going to have to replace your paycheck. So you want to make sure in this period that you explore the different ways you can create this lifetime income to cover your basic expenses and take a lot of that stress out. So leverage that lifetime income.
Absolutely. This is where I'm going to call it Social Security planning becomes really important. So having that overall income plan that's going to take into account all of your different sources of income, Social Security income, pension income, rental income, portfolio income, all the different types of income. Where are those coming from? Putting a plan together for each one. So Social Security, when's the best day for you to take it? When's the best day for your spouse to take it if you're married? Pension planning, what's the best option for, again, one person or for 2 people when it comes to taking that pension? And then from there is just determining, hey, are you more comfortable with fluctuating income, or would you like more pension-like income? And there's a lot of tools and instruments out there to turn, portfolio income into pension-like income. And each has their pros and cons to them. So it's having somebody that's going to walk through that with you to determine, okay, after your Social Security, after your pension, and any other sources that you have coming in, how much of the remainder of your income do you want to be fluctuating, meaning portfolio-like withdrawal income? And then is there any additional pension income that you want just to help you feel comfort in your retirement income plan?
All right, so that kind of wraps up the conversation, the 5 things you need to know about decumulation. Hopefully this kind of opened your eyes to some things that maybe you hadn't considered before, hadn't really thought about. But again, it is such an important part of the overall retirement plan is that you make sure you spend down this money correctly. And you can see today on this episode that there's a lot that goes into it. So if you don't have an advisor yet, don't have a planner to work with, make sure you give Scott a call. He's happy to talk with you about this or any of your other planning needs. You can find him online at lifemoneyshow.com, or you can call at 847-235-6989. Scott, I got a mailbag question I want to end things with, a question that came in from Derek. Want to get your thoughts on this. He says, my aunt died recently and left her house and some cash to me. I've never had a desire to buy a rental property before, but I'm considering keeping the house as a rental property now that this opportunity has fallen in my lap. Is that wise, or do you think I'd be better off selling it and investing the proceeds?
Wow, a pretty studious and wealth-building question here from Derek, wouldn't you say, Ben?
Yeah, I like this one.
Yeah, yep. And so here's some things for Derek to think about in regards to, the rental property and rental income. So Derek was left a house, an asset, and just kind of how, from a numbers standpoint, Derek can kind of look at this and say, okay, does this make sense for me to keep this? Does it not? And there's a numbers part, there's kind of a work and emotional part, and in determining this. So first off, he was left the house. That's an asset. That asset can continue to appreciate in value. That asset can also create income for Derek. So money coming into him. Now, he does have to take into account that there will be expenses that would need to go out, like taxes, repairs, maintenance, or any other surprise expenses, right? Like maybe the furnace breaks down or the water heater goes out, and things that he will have to, pay for as that happens if he looks at it as a rental property. So a good way to calculate it is, okay, how much rental income will Derek have coming in each and every year? What is that amount minus all of those expenses that I just listed? And that will provide a dollar value of what he would have coming in for the year. He can then divide that dollar value by the value of the property, and that would tell him what kind of return that he's getting on that property. And then what he could do is compare that to how he would be invested in the market and take a look at that and just kind of look at the pros and cons and say, oh, okay, well, based on this property, based on the rental income that I can get in this neighborhood and market, and then taking out all the expenses, he might go, I've got a 2% return, in which case he would potentially be able to get better in the market. Maybe he's got a 15% return, in which case he's got a really good asset there to hold on to. And so I would actually, look through the numbers first and determine what kind of return will he be getting off of this asset, this property that he owns from an income standpoint. Then the other part is kind of I'll call it a work/emotional part of, do you want to be a landlord? Do you want to, have people potentially not paying you rent checks? Or, do you want to be the person that has to go through the process of trying to find renters to rent your house out to? And, there can be a lot of great renters out there, and then there could be renters that unfortunately would trash the house, and you've got to go in at the end and, go through a lot of repairs. Do you want to go through those surprise phone calls at 10 o'clock at night and when the water heater busts? And a lot of that can be very, very rewarding for the return that you would get on the property, but is that something that you want to go through as a person? So I think two parts there, but great question from Derek. I really, enjoy getting questions like these and hopefully providing him a nice little checklist to go through to, kind of that old Ben Franklin comparison left and right to say, okay, which does he prefer, and then move forward.
Yeah, it seems like he's got a good situation, but it is good that he is looking at it from a way what he can do to best benefit himself long term. It's a great way to have that perspective. But some different things to consider there with the rental versus investing. So hopefully that helps you out. But again, if you want to sit down with Scott, you can always visit lifemoneyshow.com, book a call online there, and talk about it a little bit further with him. All right, Scott, let's close out this episode. Again, just want to encourage everyone one more time to leave a review. If you made it this far, you've obviously liked what you heard. So please drop us a review. We'd appreciate it. It can be a short, sweet, just any thoughts that you have, any feedback on the show. We'd appreciate that. You can do that right there in whatever app you're listening on. And while you're there, please subscribe to the show as well. It'll help us continue to grow. And our goal is to help educate people. So growth will help do that. So we do appreciate that. And I want to send that message out one more time, Scott.
Great, Ben. Yep. Thanks for everybody. Thanks for your reviews and your support. And I look forward to the next episode.
All right. Thank you for listening to Your Life, Your Money. For Scott Sierens over at Sierens Financial Group, I'm Ben George. Take care, and we'll talk to you next week.
Sierens Financial Group is an independent financial services firm that utilizes a variety of investment and insurance products. Investment advisory services offered only by duly registered individuals through AE Wealth Management, LLC. AE Wealth Management and Sierens Financial Group, Inc. are not affiliated companies. Investing involves risk, including the potential loss of principal. Any references to protection, safety, or lifetime income generally refer to fixed insurance products, never securities or investments. Insurance guarantees are backed by the financial strength and claims-paying abilities of the issuing carrier. This podcast is intended for informational purposes only. It is not intended to be used as the sole basis for financial decisions, nor should it be construed as advice designed to meet the particular needs of an individual's situation. Sierens Financial Group, Inc. is not permitted to offer, and no statement made during this show shall constitute tax or legal advice. Our firm is not affiliated with or endorsed by the U.S. government or any governmental agency. The information and opinions contained herein, provided by third parties, have been obtained from sources believed to be reliable, but accuracy and completeness cannot be guaranteed by Sierens Financial Group, Inc.